Welcome to the Caregivers Like Us podcast, where we are answering the call and serving others. The purpose of this podcast is to provide support, encouragement, resources, and solutions to the caregiving community. My name is Vaughn Foy, also known as the Voice Brander, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host and friend, Miss Coach Christy. We are listening forward to sharing with you. Enjoy. All right, welcome everybody to the Caregivers Like Us podcast. My name is Vaughn Foy, also known as the Voice Brander, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Coach Christy.
Hello there. Hello.
We're glad to be here, and we have a special episode. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be a multiple episode.
Yes.
So this is going to be
I'm beyond excited.
Episode one of many. We are here with, I had recently met our new good friend, Mr. Joe Petroski. I think I spelled that or pronounced that right. Yep. All right, I got it. Joe Petroski, he is the CEO of Profoundly Living LLC, and you will hear just in a moment of why that is and how also his services, his company is doing a lot of healing in the land and what we need. So we're going to continue to dive right into it. Joe, I would love to just kind of start back to we're gonna talk a little bit today about like you being a care recipient, and also kind of what took you to that place, your journey of the illness, coming home, being cared for, and or not being cared for, and different things that you had to do. So kind of share with us. We'll start right there. Just share with us of your.
Sure. Yeah. Well, originally I was very, very healthy. I was 205 pounds, not a stitch of fat on me. Had my own handyman business. I could fix anything in your homes. And all of a sudden I started to develop these nasty, horrible migraines that would make me incredibly nauseous. And it was from perfumes and cleaners and such like that. And then it got to be everything. It got to be fertilizer, car exhaust, potpourri, laundry detergent, you name it, hair mousse. All of those would give me such horrible migraines and such nausea that I would literally be in bed for anywhere from 3 to 7 days.
Mhm.
And the doctors didn't know how to stop it. And I went from being the strongest on the job, the first on, last off, hardly took any breaks, to being hardly able to keep up with my 3.5-year-old daughter. I would let her walk with our Doberman 3 houses down and then 3 houses back because daddy couldn't walk that fast and keep up with her.
Mhm.
And so it was a humbling illness, very, very difficult, because I went from being a provider and a caregiver, and I had to teach my little daughter how to cook her own macaroni and cheese and things like that. So it was very, very difficult. And I went from one doctor to another doctor, and they would give up. And they said that many of them very early on said, you have a really horrible illness. It's going to progress. And this is how it's going to progress. And you're going to end up dying from it. And I was just like, I mean, because at the time I was still 205 pounds. And I was just like, okay, I'm, 6'1", I'm buff. But it got to the point where I started to lose more and more weight. I started to become allergic to more and more foods. And at the end, for over 3.5 years, all I could have was chicken, turkey, or broccoli. And it had to be completely organic. If it was anything other than that, I would become so ill. And it would be the longest migraine that I had was 17 days. And I begged the doctors, please, please, just give me something. Let me sleep. I need to sleep. And they were very afraid to give me anything because they weren't sure if they gave me a medication, if it would actually kill me. That's how badly my body was reacting at the time. And so I kept on trying. I had doctor after doctor. And by this point, it was probably 7 or 8 doctors. Well, actually, when I met the fellow that helped me get well, I had all 9 doctors say that I was going to die from the illness. But I was in this support group that we're talking about here that I learned about caregivers and the necessity for caregivers. And it was called Together We Heal, and it was from Pathways in Minneapolis. It's a free organization that offers services to people with life-threatening illnesses. And unfortunately, I qualified for that. and they had categories 3, 2, 1, and 1 was the ones that were the worst and probably were going to die from the illness. And I qualified as a number 1. And but it was through those people, those caregivers, and the support group that they had, that I can guarantee you, without them, I would not be here. I actually met some people that knew more about my illness than I did, or that more than the doctors even knew from their experience. And it was fantastic to have that support and to become aware of it, because I just kept on trying and kept on trying. And when the doctors they admitted they couldn't help me. They admitted they knew what my body was doing, but they didn't know how to stop it. They did, and they were afraid to give me any more medicines, because every single one of the medicines, I had the worst side effects to it. There was one time where one of the doctors actually sent me to an apothecary to have prescription filled. And I was like, oh, didn't even know what an apothecary was at the time. But it was someplace where they go and they hand and mix the medications. And I came back to him and I said, these are the side effects I'm having. And it was a new doctor, because that one was on vacation. He says, you can't possibly have those side effects. Those are the side effects for the blue pill, which I can't remember what the name was. And we gave you the yellow pill. And so you can't have those side effects. And I looked at him and I says, hey, dude, I says, I don't really care about what color the pill is or what it is. I said, you should know by now that I react to almost everything. And I said, so these are the side effects. And so he went to the head of the department and he said, hey, he says, we got this guy. He's complaining of the side effects, but he's not having it. We said, what should we do? He's here. And again, they didn't expect me to live from appointment to appointment sometimes.
Right.
And so the doctor came in and said, what side effects? Oh, okay. These are the side effects I'm having. And he says, oh my God, you're telling the truth. And I looked and I said, excuse me? And he says, well, we thought you were reading the PDR. And I didn't even know what the PDR was at the time. The PDR is the physician's desk reference, which basically lists every single medicine and its interactions. And I didn't even know the book existed. And because since I had every single side effect from every single medication, they knew that I had to be reading that book and making it up. So when they tricked me by giving the different ingredients to the pills, they realized that my body was actually telling the truth about what the body was experiencing. And so that gave me a whole new quote unquote level of respect from the doctors. But it also, I mean, just think about it. Here you go, and you're putting your hands in the fate of the doctors, and they don't know what's going on, and then they lie to you, you know? So it was a very, very scary process. But through that group, I actually ended up meeting this 35th generation Shaolin master, a Chinese healer. And when I went to him, he picked me out of a group of 150 people. And he said, you can do this. And I said, well, I'm the guy that's dying. I need some help first. And so I went to him and his students. And after the second 1-hour session, I no longer needed the supportive oxygen. And after the third, I was completely healthy. And so I trained with him. But I can go back to the importance of the caregiver. So my ex-wife, we were still married at the time. I come to find out during my illness, she actually willingly did some things that she would know would make me sicker. And I actually, when we were going through the divorce, I had to make the decision to turn her in or not. And so it was something where if I did, my kids would go into the foster care system. And so I didn't, because I figured her and her family and my family would be better. And, because at that point we still thought I was going to die. But the support people were so important. And like I say, pathways, they would not allow me to get certain treatments, certain supportive treatments, unless my caregiver went and got some some services of her own. And so they actually called her up 3 different times and said, could you please come in to receive some services so we can give these services to Joe? And she went in once, but she never went in again. And so I ended up having to have a surrogate caregiver. I had to have somebody else that I could list as a caregiver. And that allowed me to receive some of the services from Pathways. And it was so helpful because, like I said, I was studying up as much as I possibly could, but a lot of the times I honestly could not see. So I couldn't read. And towards the end, I couldn't read at all. I couldn't read at all. I couldn't watch TV because I couldn't track it. There was one time my daughter said, read Spot, the big yellow dog. And so thankfully I had read Spot the Big Yellow Dog probably about 250 times by then. As if you're a parent, you know what that's like.
Yes.
They can read the same book 100 million times and it's like they've read it for the first time.
Right.
But I was reading, quote unquote, reading the book, and because I just remembered it's the progress of the book. And all of a sudden I mixed up the order of the pages. And my daughter, she goes, "Oh, Daddy, you can't see again." And I didn't even know that she knew that I couldn't see. And because I would do my best when I couldn't see to have her, I could fumble and put in a VCR tape. I could get, certain things so she could, do some crafts or color or something like that, while Daddy would pass out on the couch and until our mom came home. And so it was a very, very scary illness, and it was very difficult. But the caregivers, the friends that were supportive to me, were so amazing. And like I say, if it wasn't for them, I can guarantee you, if it wasn't for,
Yeah.
Bless you, honey.
if it wasn't for Myrna Rydell, Katie Rubio, Mary Strauss, and I just know him as Ford. If it wasn't for those guys, I can guarantee. Oh, and Don, of course, Don Nelson. If it wasn't for those guys, I can guarantee you I wouldn't be alive. And they helped me in such key moments. And Myrna, actually, she had me make a pact. She says, "Joe, we know you're going to be the next to die, and you probably will take your life. So she says, when it comes to that, call me. I'm not going to talk you out of it. I just want to be able to tell your daughters what you're feeling like, what you're experiencing, and so do that." And unfortunately, I had to call her. It got to that when I was in the migraine for 17 days. On the 16th day, I called her and I said, "Hey," I said, and I told her, and she said, "Let me read 13 lines out of a book." I was like, "Yeah, whatever. You're interrupting me," because I had it all laid out. I had the phone I was going to call. I had the chef's knife on the deck. I had the hose by the dog run, and I was just going to walk into the dog run where the gravel was. I was going to do what I needed to do, and then when the sheriffs and the paramedics came, all they needed to do was to wash down the gravel as they took me away. And that's how close it came. But she read out of a book some of the things that I was experiencing with the illness. And one of the things that was absolutely horrible is, I would say, horrible, disgusting things the people I loved and cared about. And I would have no idea. And so she read out of the book all of these symptoms: losing the vision, not being able, or saying things, not knowing it, not being able to eat foods without getting, horribly ill, and all of that kind of stuff. And I took that book, I called up one of the doctors and I said, "I need to come in." "Joe, we can't help you. There's nothing we do." I said, "I just need to come in." And so he let me come in first person in the morning, because going into a regular waiting room with people with laundry detergent on, hairspray, all that kind of stuff, I wouldn't be able to see. I wouldn't be able to drive home.
Yeah.
And so he let me come in and I showed him this book and I said, "Hey, is this me?" He said, "Well, we've known that all along." I looked at him and I says, "You never told me." He says, "What do you mean we never told you?" And he says, "We had to have done this test." I said, "No, you never did that test. You never let." I never knew that when I did those things that it was because of the illness. And I unfortunately grew up where my dad had called me defective and, worse and worse and worse, and saying that I was mentally, this, that, and the other thing. And when I started to develop that illness and I started to have those behaviors that I couldn't stop, I thought, maybe he was right. And that's when I was going to take my own life. And when that book, Elizabeth Rose, Lady of Gray, was the name of the book. When I read those lines, or had those lines read to me because I couldn't see, and the doctor confirmed that, and he looked through and he said, "Oh my God," he said, "none of us ever did that test." He said, "We all knew what was going on, but none of us did that." And he says, "What do you feel about yourself? How do you?" And I said, "Exactly." He says, "What would you feel if this is what you did and this is how you were?" So it was a horrible time, to say things that affected my daughters, say things that affected my ex-wife, my friends, not know I did it, and you guys know what it's like when somebody calls you certain words.
Yeah.
They might be able to take them back, but that hurt's never going to leave you.
Right.
So it was bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're just so incredible. You are. So, the more I learn about you, the more I love you. Oh my gosh, so much to share.
It was, when I was going through this, the people, one is the Together We Heal. I would see people that did win and they did gain health. Nobody had the same illness that I did. And there was, two women in there that had a variation of it. The least of it is called multiple chemical sensitivity or environmental illness, where just the cleaners, the perfumes, the paints, the varnishes, car exhaust, those kinds of things would affect you in a really bad way. But usually for most people, it's just migraines, nausea, weakness, that kind of stuff. It's a very small amount that actually have it to the point where it cuts off the blood flow to a certain part of the brain on the left side, that stops the ability to see and makes one say, not be able to filter what they say. And so it was hard. It was really difficult, but I just kept on trying. I would have people, like I say, Myrna and Katie and Mary, and Dawn, they would come in, and um, they all had to wear soaps that I could handle, things that wouldn't make me sick and such. They had to be able to do that. And they did. My friends did. My ex-wife, she, when we were still married, she wouldn't. So I had to sleep in a different room from her. When she would get home from work, I'd have to go into my room, turn on the fan for more positive air pressure, so the smell from her and all of her work stuff wouldn't, affect me as much.
Wow.
But the people that were there that supported us, I give thanks all the time. I send them money all the time so they can, keep their doors open.
Sure.
And I'm just so grateful for that. And it's important for people to take care of themselves, because like my wife at the time, she didn't take care of herself. She went through hell watching, first of all, no money from him anymore. And she actually said, "You're going to be sick. You're always going to be sick. Quit spending my money." It's like, "Oh, thanks for the support." But she didn't take care of herself, and she experienced all these horrible, difficult things all on her own. And so it just got worse and worse for her, and harder for her. And she finally took an exit. She's like, "Oh, we need to get a divorce." And so she left. And
Yeah, illness is very hard on a marriage, whether it's the spouse themselves or, in my case, we had a child. It there's just things that come up that you don't think about and you don't prepare for, because it's not even a thought when
Mhm.
you're getting together and getting married and things like that. So I commend you. I understand, and I'm so happy to hear about pathways and how they're promoting the caregiver. Is like they have to get the care in
That's
order
good.
for their loved one to continue to get the treatment. I mean, that's phenomenal. I never heard of such a thing, so I was really excited to hear about what you had to share, and I was like, oh, please, please bring it on, and however we can promote them and support them to continue to
Mhm.
help anyone and everyone who needs the care that they need and the caregiver.
Mhm. Yeah, because they know that whole, global system, they
Yeah.
know that it's not just that one person. And that you can look at the caregiver and you can tell whether the person with the illness is having a good day or a bad day
Yeah.
by how the caregiver is. And
Yeah.
and when you're sitting there and you have, your significant other, or your child is getting diagnoses, and now what do we do?
Right.
And that's the part where having a support network so you can actually have ideas of what to do. And unfortunately, in the United States, just for example, for women typically rate themselves fifth in order of importance. It's going to be their significant other, their children, their career, their pets, and then themselves.
Yeah.
And so if it happens to be a woman that's a caregiver,
Mm.
okay, well, when on earth is she going to take care of herself?
Right.
And people don't understand that it not only affects the sick person, it affects the caregiver, then it affects the kids, and everybody else. And so when a person chooses to take care of themselves, it helps everybody.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a
I can so resonate with that. I mean, even like when you were talking about your daughter, because my children, my older children to my son, same thing. They were the siblings, and even from a very young age, they knew they kind of were on watch, if you could,
Mhm.
between my son and myself, and they created their own bond of like, all right, today mom's just not in her right facility, so the two of us, we get to figure it out. And
Mhm.
there, it's just a whole family dynamic. And so I'm fascinated with your daughter,
yeah,
and just being able to share that. And like you said, preparing them for things. My children knew from a very young age as well. We talked about end of life very openly because their brother was never guaranteed to live through the week. So they got to live this lifestyle of this is, we say all the time, or this is plan A to Z, this is what we want to get accomplished today. And then throughout
Mhm.
the day, this or this or this might happen. So we always have these backup plans on what's going to be and what's how things are. So no, the survival skills of our children are incredible. And so, I mean, I think your daughter could write a whole book.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to meet her. I mean, she seems so fascinating. And she's how old now?
She's 28 right now. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. She's
Mhm.
so intuitive, I can imagine, on
Mhm.
just all the people around her.
Yeah. And yeah, having to grow up and like you say, what your family went through, and
Yeah,
she grew up and it's just like, oh, you can't do that around daddy. If you do
right,
that, daddy will get sick. And it's like,
right,
or daddy, didn't come to the school thing today because daddy can't see, or daddy's in bed, and um, and I was so darn skinny that you could actually see the cartilage in my nose. You could see the cartilage difference between the cartilage and the bone in my ribs.
yeah,
And so I didn't look very good. And so for my daughter to see me that skinny and to have pictures, up on the, desk or whatever of the whole family, when daddy was healthy and daddy was strong, and all of a sudden now daddy's this, skinny little guy. Because I was, by the doctor's skinny scales, I was well over 35
right.
pounds underweight. And so
And
yeah.
what a miraculous comeback from the other side. Like your daughter has literally seen you survive through
Mhm.
all of this. And so the life skill tools that she's going to have, or she does have,
yeah,
is just it profoundly living couldn't have been better said.
yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah.
are the walking proof of profoundly living. And my son, that's all he kept telling us. And it was really hard for us to really wrap our mind around what he was trying to teach us. And he was like, no, live your best life. Like, because again, he never
Mhm.
knew where his next breath was coming from. And so
Mhm.
every day that he was awake, he was thankful and joyful. And he sent a really great message. And so just meeting you, I get so excited because I'm like, you two have the same mindset. Because you've literally had to speak life into your own body parts, and medicine can't always teach that. So, like you were saying, that's one of the things that I learned in respiratory school was I had the honor of having such a great teacher, and the very first thing that he taught us was you're not going to always treat your patients with medication. It's you treat the patient and then everything else comes after that. You don't treat the diagnosis, you treat the patient. And so just hearing you and yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
loving every moment right now. I'm like, give me more, feed me
Yeah.
more,
Mhm.
share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Treating the patient. And it's so interesting because with the healthcare, especially if it's a clinic that is governed by an HMO, my doctor, when he told me, when it came so clear that he had to come to me and say, "Hey, Joe, there's only one other treatment we could try, but if it doesn't work, it will probably kill you. So
Yeah.
we can't help you. We can't do that. And you need to go home and you need to get your affairs in order and you need to prepare to die." And
Yeah.
so that day he spent more than the 12 minutes. He spent like, I think 14 and a half minutes or something with me. He got in trouble for spending an extra 2 minutes with me
Yeah.
when he told me that I was going to die. And I was like, oh, so much for health care.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating how the healthcare system has changed over the years. I like say my son lived to be 30 years old, so from the time he was born to the time he had passed, I wasn't in the healthcare system. Well, I was a medical assistant at the time, but then I got into respiratory just to help the doctors help me kind of, if I could learn their language, maybe I could talk and have them help me, with his respiratory and cardiac issues. And they did, and we learned a lot. But yeah, the way the trajectory of
Mhm.
healthcare was provided over the years, it got more and more difficult. Like you say, there's time limits and there's, your stays in the hospital are shorter. And so really being able to bring him home and learning, okay, me and my other two children, like we really had to have our systems down on, okay, this is my older son's comfort level. And then here's my
Mhm.
daughter's comfort level of care. And then,
Mm.
when do we take them back to the ER? When do, all those things, like you were saying, there's such a dynamics of how we are cared for. And it does take a team. It absolutely takes a team. And
Mhm.
like you said, if it wasn't for the support of others, being able to reach back and say, look, I might be able to help you with this little bit of information that I have.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's so critical. And so, yeah, I cannot speak enough about support groups, and I can't speak enough about just not giving up. And doctors won't always have our answers, but there's so many other people in this world who do. And when we're not feeling well, it's hard to reach out. Like you were
Yeah.
saying, migraines for days on end.
Wow.
Who wants to lift their head off a pillow and have a conversation on the phone? You don't.
Mhm.
You want to lay there, you want to rest, you want to get better as you can, but having the team is imperative. So I'm so thankful that the right people came into your life. I'm so thankful that you got better. And that in itself is, I
Yeah.
cannot wait to hear about how you profoundly keep living and how you got back. You clearly are healthier and you look better and you sound better. And yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little. I will probably next episode. I want to talk about um, probably because the youngest caregiver that I've ever heard about, like your daughter, was a
Mhm.
caregiver on
At
a
like 3 years
major
old, yeah.
level. Yeah. And I want to bring that up later because that kind of struck. But tell us, we got about 10 minutes left here, which is plenty time. Tell us about, so the transition between you went back, found out, hey, this is, you didn't tell me about this. And then, and tell us
Mhm.
about that journey then into your healing or the beginning of your healing.
Well, that was after there was two doctors that I worked with at the very end that knew about the situation I was dealing with. And when both of them told me that I had less than a year to live, and one said, we have one treatment that we could try, but if it doesn't work, it may hasten your death. He was the cool, gentle one. And
Yeah.
the other one was the pragmatic, and he says, it'll kill you. Um, and so when I found out when I saw that book and I took it in there and he says, yeah, we knew that. For starters, you can't imagine how pissed I was in a lot of ways because I literally thought I was nuts. I thought I was crazy because early on, I was going to see a psychologist and a psychiatrist until I could no longer take their medicines. And
Mm,
they thought, just try harder, just say your affirmations more, just do your biofeedback more. Um, and um, and so, one of the times when they had the biofeedback, they were looking at it and it's just like, well, what were you doing, to cause that? And I says, I was in your guy's office. I says, there was nothing. I was in a soundproof room. I said, I was laying down. Um, and they didn't understand how my body could have these different reactions when
mm,
I had, you know, um, probably waves or white noise in the earmuffs, or the headphones.
mhm.
Right.
And they didn't understand that my body could do that. And I said, okay, now you know what it's like to be me.
Right.
And so when I found out that I truly wasn't crazy, that it was actually a biological thing that was making me think these ways, it was a biological thing that was making me talk these ways. Um, it was twofold. It was one, thank goodness thank goodness I'm not fucked up. Okay. Because
Mm,
I really thought that I was a messed up, horrible person because of this and because of everything that my dad used to say to me when he would beat the smithereens out of me.
mm,
I literally had started to believe that kind of part. And when I realized I wasn't crazy, um, it was helpful and it was nice and it was phew. But then it was just like, okay, what do I do? And so literally there's a couple things that I did and I developed some hand signals and I told everybody that I knew, everybody that I cared about. I said, okay, there's going to be two things that I do. If I hold my hands in a fist, I says, I'm not going to punch you. I says, if I hold my hands in a fist and I sit on my hands and then I'm going to grip my teeth. And, when you see that, don't ask me a question.
mm,
Do not ask me a question. Try and not talk to me. Make sure I can get home, and you probably
mhm,
should leave as soon as you can. Because if I would close my hands and I would sit on my fist and I would grip my teeth, it would let everybody know I probably at that point couldn't see. And I definitely very, very soon, if asked any questions, I was probably going to talk like a horrible, disgusting
mm,
pig and say horrible, disgusting things. And so that's what I let people know because at that time I knew that there was step by step by step in which I was going to lose complete total control of my body.
mm,
And so my friends, they knew that and they would watch, and then my daughter had to watch daddy's hands. And, and so it was
mm,
helpful in some ways, but it was also really, really scary in some ways.
Yeah.
And it was literally, in a lot of ways, I was belligerent because they said, you're going to die, get used to it. And I'm just like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. And they didn't understand how come I kept on trying, Reiki, Qigong, shamanic healing, Nate, Bioset, and AAT, acupuncture. I kept on trying all kinds of anything and everything to get me some time and do it. And luckily I did it. And when I found that Chinese healer, and when I went to the first one, they started to tell me things about my body that there's no way they could have known it. They didn't see my medical records. I didn't tell them about my history,
mm,
and they knew things that I had encountered with my body and things that had happened to me and were done to me. And as they did that, I felt all these different sensations in my body. And I started to feel stronger, even though, I mean, because that's something hard to explain. It's like maybe if you think about when you're really, 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 really tired, like if you've ever, when you were a kid, maybe you gone on a really long car ride and you were really tired and you had to get up out of the car and then walk those stairs to your bed and you felt like
mhm.
you were never going to be able to make it. That was
Right.
life.
Mm,
And and so all of a sudden to feel strong and to be able to sit up and those kinds of things, it was just wild. And to be able to see the whole day was wild. And to be able
mm,
to watch TV and make sense of it because I couldn't follow the thing. when they would say that, they got in a fight and then they did this and she went this way and he went that, I couldn't follow that.
Mm.
But to be able to watch a program and be able to see that, or to be able to not guess at that bouncing white thing in the living room and say, I think that's my daughter, because she was and to know, it was amazing. And I remember the first time I smelt a bus when the bus went by my friend's house. And I was like, wow. And he looked at me because he knew me really well. And he says, holy crap. He says, you haven't changed. I said, I know. Because when I would get exposed to something like that, my whole body would change. My eyes would change. My breathing would change. My posture would change.
Mhm.
And he's like, it didn't affect you. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, whoa. and then, I went after the third time, the third session, I went over to his house and says, hey, can I ride your bike? He says, yeah. And so I didn't think about this, and this was before everybody had cell phones. And I hopped on the bike and I went for a bike ride, and it was such a beautiful day. It was just amazing. And I biked for over an hour. And when I got back, he was so mad at me. He says, I thought you died. you know, and
Wow.
but to go from being so damn weak and not being able to see and not being able to eat something, to feeling absolute strong, still being skinny as skinny can be, but feeling strong and not needing to lay down and take a nap, 2 hours after getting up.
Mm.
It was bizarre and it was so damn freeing. And then I made it my life. I studied with him solid for 3.5 years, the Shaolin teacher. And then I went to the Native American, a couple times a month for 3.5 years. And since then, I've studied with everybody. I've had numerous discussions with Dr. Bruce Lipton, spent, almost 27 hours or more with Dr. Dean Rodden, had some conversations with Dr. Norman Shealy and Greg Braden, and all these different people that study energy healing and study the subtle energy. And so I've done that, and I've met with other energy healers, and it is the profoundly living. It's when I knew that I could do this, when I knew that I could help people truly eliminate really serious pains and illnesses, I dedicated my life to it. And as I've done it, the gifts, get deeper and deeper and deeper. I just went through a whole thing about 3.5 or 4 months where I started to really, really shift and do things, and the healing abilities are even stronger now than they were 4 months ago. And I can read anybody. I can see the absolute best things about you. I can see why you were born, your purpose, and I can see the blocks that are there. And so with the coaching, it's fantastic to help people do this. But my biggest thing is to let people know you don't need to suffer. And it may not be my healing, my type of healing, but I have other healers that I can recommend you to. But don't give up. Just don't give up. There may be a way. And
There is a way.
Mhm.
Yes.
yeah. Mhm. And it's for those people, that, so supposedly succumb to the illness. Like I had said before, pathways, I got to find out how they say it, that healing is not necessarily victory over the illness, but healing is the deep connection and the peace with you and the creator. And
Yes.
that's the thing, because I've seen some people, and I've had clients where they simply needed to speak up for themselves or say something or do something for themselves. And I was like, that's all they needed to do.
Right.
And so
Mm.
it's powerful. It's really powerful stuff.
This
It's so incredible.
is good. This is good stuff. We're gonna push pause
Okay.
and have it to be continue another episode. Joe, we're gonna have to get
We need you back,
we're
Joe.
gonna schedule another time.
Okay.
'Cause we're literally just gonna unpush pause
I
and
want to
keep
keep
going.
Okay.
expanding and growing in this and get you out there on how you just get to support and profoundly help others live.
Yeah,
this is exciting.
really good stuff. When I met Joe on our EBN network, and immediately I was like, okay, yeah, we need to have you on the podcast.
We need Joe in our life. Yes, we do.
Well, it's interesting because today was, I always watch things, and today was the third time within 2 weeks that I was asked, are you going to teach again? And I teach people how to do energy healing. And so, and I teach them to be the best healer that they can be, not the way to do it Joe's way, but
Gotcha.
I can see how they can heal. And so I'm going to start teaching that, and I'll probably do it, I'm thinking in January. I don't know if I could pull it off to do it in December, but I'm gonna do that, and I love it to see the other people learn how to do it and start to eliminate, really serious things,
Yeah.
migraines, neck ache and backache that are quote unquote permanent, and to
Right.
see people eliminate those is amazing and
Now,
fantastic.
Joe, please let us know how our audience can even connect with you,
Yeah.
link with you. We do have your links that we will put in the show notes and things like that. But if you would, for those that are just driving and listening, let us know how can they reach you or find out more about
The best way is actually to text or to call. Email is the worst. So,
it.
and you can call 651-755-6027, and you can leave a message. And I always offer people a 30-minute complimentary discussion, because people don't know that this level of healing is possible. And it's also something I want to be able to ask you to the point where I can see and feel comfortably and say, yeah, I can. Otherwise, I'll see who I can refer you to. But anytime you have somebody that wonders if it would work or help or support, have them reach out to me. And if
That's
you know
great.
somebody that's struggling with an illness and they're just scared and lonely, have them call me too, because even if they don't want to, book services. So,
It's so good. We definitely will have your information on our resource page. And when we promote for this episode going out, definitely we will be sharing and making
okay.
sure that
Yeah.
as many people that we have contact with in our circles will definitely know and be able to reach out to you.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to call you my self for me and my
Okay.
grandkids who have the same syndrome as my son. So
Mm,
I'm
okay.
definitely going to be reaching out
Yeah.
to you.
Okay.
Wow.
Awesome.
Well,
Well,
Joe,
thank you. Thank you.
thank you so much. Man, yeah, we'll be in touch really soon, and thank you for sharing. And just in this last hour that we had, so we will be back next time. To our listening audience, stay tuned for part 2 of several. We want to hear your stories, your services, your resources, anything that you have. We want the main thing is to share this with other caregivers or those that have already finished their assignment of caregiving. We just constantly want to share the stories.
Yeah, come share your stories.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear them.